The actual Middle East conflict is the same pharaonic war as always, with, in this case, the Arabic Philistine nobility trying to eliminate the newcomers of 1948 by using religion as their main tool. The battle in Gaza is not between the peoples, but between the 1948 newcomers of the Jaywalker nobility, here to the left, and the Arab Philistine nobility, here to the right. So here it says Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild. You know, they are barons, or they look like barons. You see the Maltese Templars cross here, because they are very much Republicans. And here, Alfred de Rothschild. So these are for the horizontal Republican rule. They have to, they need to, because the Jaywalkers, they didn't have any land in Europe. So they needed also a new system. So they really like the Templar system. And these ones are the vertical rule, you know, the feudal system. You can see this. Here the slaves, and here the feudal masters. So here you got the Jaywalkers on one side, and you got the nobility, not the normal people. And here you got the Philistine nobility on the other side. That's what the war is about. Just as in Europe, 2 world wars between the German nobility of the Kaiser Wilhelm II and the British nobility, more or less, you know, the WindSARs and the Order of the Garter, of course. This is what the war is about. All wars are by the nobility. Here it says Ottoman Empire, also called the Caliphate. For the Arab nobility, Gaza and the entire JJ base still belong to the Turkish Ottoman Caliphate. Therefore, the Arabic nobility use religion as a pretext to bring back the Caliphate. Whereas a Caliphate was never by God, Allah, nor the people, but a Caliphate is a terrible feudal dictatorship by the Oriental nobility. So here you can see the flag with 100 years, and here it says 100 years without the Caliphate. So this year, 2024, it has been exactly 100 years ago that the Caliphate ended in 1924. And that happened on March the 3rd. So this March the 3rd, which will be coming up next week, it is exactly 100 years ago that the Caliphate was abolished. And we can all see in the media these terrorist groups, they all want the Caliphate back. So we will see on March the 3rd some very terrible things going on as a celebration, you know, to get back the Caliphate, you know, which ended 100 years ago. So here you can read about the Ottoman Caliphate. That was the last Caliphate. Here is one of their flags. You see, it's, you know, it's not by God, all this, you know, it's a nobility coat of arms, you know. So when did it end? Here it says the abolition of the Caliphate in 1924, when the Turkey, you know, became from a vertical rule caliphate a horizontal rule republic by Atatürk. And Yeah, that's Atatürk, Freemason, because the Republic is Freemasonry. And that's why there's a lot of talk, you know, by the Catholics and religion, you know, that the Freemasons are bad, but it's exactly the same thing as the vertical rule by the Caliphate. You know, they're the same people. So here it says here, this is the chapter about the abolition here. Here, this is the last caliph. And here it says, on his initiative, the National Assembly abolished the Caliphate on March 3rd, 1924. So next week we have a March 3rd, 2024. You better watch that date, people. So I punched here today's date, and I've got my computer on French, so lundi, it's Monday, 26 février is February, it's almost the same word, you know, 2024. So I'm telling you this on about March 3rd, 2024, and that it's 100 years ago that the Caliphate ended, which will be in a week's time, or even less, maybe 5 days. Yeah, 5 days. So I won't be finishing this video on that date. So we are 5 days shy of the date, and I'll probably publish this video a couple of days after, because it's a lot of work doing this. Sometimes I need 2 or 3 weeks to make a video. You know. So when at this date, you know, all shit hits the fan, and I'm coming like 3 days after, like saying, well, you know, this date, this and this will happen. You have to know that I'm saying this 5 days before. It needs a vertical war against our masters to stop all the horizontal wars in between the peoples. Hamas is a tool by the Arabic nobility, and the JJ state belongs to the J.Walker nobility, like the barons of Rothschild, the Levi Strauss nobility, and others. Therefore, on October 7th, the JJ state left the door open in order to mobilize the J.Walkers to be ready in their hearts and minds to wage war for their lords of the J.Walker nobility. The Gaza war is, as usual, an inner war within Pharaoh's nobility, and the people have to fight it for them. This time it's not the German nobility, but it is the Arabic nobility who wants the J.Walkers dead and gone. And as crazy as it looks, Prime Minister Netanyahu and the rest of his J.Walker nobility in Parliament had to sacrifice 1,200 innocent J.Walkers in the JJ base on October 7th in order to save the whole country and to make the people of the JJ base ready to fight for their lives. So I wrote it down for you here. Here it says NWO. I can't pronounce it because of the censorship. So it's on the left side NWO, on the right side it says OWO. This is old, and this means world, and this is order, and this here is new. It's the horizontal rule versus the old vertical rule of the royalist feudal Arabic nobility of the Caliphate. And this here is the Republican jaywalker nobility. Of course, there's also Arabic Republicans, like Egypt here, or Turkey. Turkey became a republic in 1924 on March 3rd. So it doesn't really matter if Egypt or Turkey, if their religion, if they are Muslims or Arabs, just like these ones here, and the poor Philistines, as they say. No, that doesn't matter at all. The only thing that matters is if they are of the NWO, Republican, or the OWO, Royalists, like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Dubai. They're all absolute monarchies. They're not constitutional monarchies. Some of these countries here in Europe, they have a constitutional monarchy, and the constitution is Republican NWO, horizontal rule. But these countries, they are absolute monarchies. They don't have the Knights Templar Constitution of the Republic. It's a direct rule. These guys, they govern directly all the way down to the people without any intermediary. Like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Dubai. They are feudal caliphate dictatorships, with no freedom. So these countries here, like Egypt, Turkey, and many others, they can flip any moment. Because like the people, they feel like more attracted to this here because of the religion and the ethnicity. But the government is this here to the left, they're Republican and Freemason rule. But they can flip any moment. And if that happens, we got a world war on our hands, probably. Then the whole NWO, the whole new system, to rule over the worldwide slaves, it would collapse. So it is in fact an internal war between the Arabic nobility to the right and the jaywalker nobility. So the Gaza war is an internal war, in fact, of the nobility. And these nobilities are both of pure pharaonic Erev Rav, or the jaywalker nobility, and also the Arabic nobility. So it's the traditional war between the OWO vertical rule of the Royalists and the NWO horizontal rule of the Republicans. The JJBs, USA, Europe, Turkey, and Egypt are all NWO Republicans. And countries like Qatar, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and of course the House of Windsor, they want the vertical rule royal caliphate for Gaza and the Philistines, for which they use religious zealots like Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, IS, and whatnot, who wrongly think that the caliphate is by Allah and for the people. They have no idea what they're actually fighting for in reality. Blinded by religion and by the lies of the Arabic nobility, the religious Muslim zealots don't see that, in fact, the caliphate is to reinstall Pharaoh of the Arabic nobility. So this Pharaoh's nobility, in Arabic they call it Fir'aun. Pharaoh is Fir'aun. So the caliphate is Fir'aun. And this is why the IS, in their black flag, they were raping children and terrorizing people, torturing people. These are not things you do in a religion, you're not supposed to do this. And these are the things the nobility has always been doing. Raping like a harem and torturing people, put them in a dungeon. And this is Fir'aun. So as many Muslims believe, the IS, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. And even I met white people, Europeans, who believe that the IS was set up by the CIA, which is complete nonsense. They have no proof for it at all. The only ones, who have an advantage, by founding the IS and their black flag, who want the Caliphate, is the ones who really are the Caliphate or really were the Caliphate, the descendants of it, the nobility. The CIA is of a republican state, which is a horizontal rule. They do not want a vertical rule, so it's complete nonsense. As most of the stuff on the internet is nonsense. The media are telling nonsense, and then there's the controlled opposition. It's all nonsense. Where does the name Hamas come from? Hamas is an anagram for Sham, or the land of Al-Sham, which combines Syria, Philistine, Lebanon, and Jordan, which indicates what it's all about, namely to install the Caliphate of Sham, or the Caliphate of Al-Sham, what in fact the IS aimed to do, and what Hamas also wants. Now look at the Hamas letters, H-A-M-A-S. Now just toss them around and you get Sham, or Al-Sham, meaning that Hamas has nothing to do with religion and in fact violates the values of Islam. So here it says Hamas is an anagram for Sham. So this part of the world here is Sham. So this here is the JJ base here, or here it says Philistine. I can't pronounce the name, neither the other name because of the censorship. Here's Jordan, this is Syria, and this is Lebanon. Altogether, this is Hamas. Here's the Al-Aqsa. So, and here it says Hamas is Sham. Here it says Sham includes present-day Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan, extending from the Euphrates River to the Sinai. So this is actually what they mean, from the rivers to the sea. This is not the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, no. It has all to do with the Caliphate. From the river to the sea is from the Euphrates rivers to the Red Sea here and to the Mediterranean. So the rivers are here to here and here. This is what it means. So Hamas is Sham. Don't trust the media. They're telling you a lot of nonsense. But the media are good, to see what's going on. But they don't tell you why it's going on, neither who is behind what's going on. In this video, I tell you all what it's all about, because my house taught me so since I was 12 years old, from one generation to the other, in the French diaspora in South Africa. And I explain what my house is in this video here. I made it 5 years ago. Here's the title in the same channel. When I was a young homie Hross at school in South Africa, there was a boy with big flappy ears, which we called chimp ears. At that time, we didn't know how true that was, because now, 50 years later, it has been proven genetically that humans share no less than 98.8% DNA with the chimpanzee. That's almost 99%. It says 98.8% DNA, which they have in common. And when I recently saw a picture of this alleged terrorist by the name of Yahya Sinwar, I automatically had to think back at my school time in South Africa and that boy in our school who was in fact just as myself of the white race. So just look at the ears, you know, because it's hereditary, that's why it's important. Here the ears, and it says Yahya, sin and war. A chimpanzee has these typical protruding ears and narrow eyes close together, what approximately 1% of humans also have, which is also hereditary from one generation to the other, as you can see here with young Prince Charles and his son Harry. Now King Charles had his protruding ears operated, so it doesn't show anymore that much. So here you can see Mr. Sin and War. You know, I don't want to call his name anymore. I just call him Mr. Sin and War. You can see the same ears of young Prince Charles. He had it operated now. And here is the young Prince Harry, also the same ears of his father. And he also had it operated, obviously. And this is the guy I once filmed, you know, and he was sticking his tongue out, you know, like a reptilian. I even found his name. So here he is from that film. His name is Andrew Gailey, Gailey. You see his tongue a little bit coming out, but he was really sticking it out and got really quickly, like a snake, you know, a couple of times, you know. And I can't say the word, you know. And he was the housemaster in Eton of the princes. The video is, this is the title, and it's on my channel Homeland Security from it's from 2 years ago. So his name is Andrew Gailey, and he also had these funny ears, you know, protruding ears. They all seem to have it, you know, around the Windsor Palace. Well, it's Tsar, you know, WindSAR, the king, you know, and there's a lot of inbreeding. So here you can read about the protruding ears. It says here the deformity can be corrected anytime after 5 years of age. So of course they did it with all of them in the royal house, of course. Yeah, and yeah, and they all have it. You know, Mr. Sin and War, Prince Charles, his son, and many more. I'm going to show that to you. So there must be some sort of a hereditary connection here. For scientific purposes only, I want to make a collage comparison of Prince Charles, Prince Harry, and Yahya, Sin and War with the chimpanzee, in order to compare the chimp characteristics of the narrow eyes and protruding ears with these worrisome characters in actual politics. But I didn't dare to, because of the FuckTube censorship and its bogus rules. Since all wars and bloodsheds come out of Pharaoh's nobility and its open and hidden bloodlines, I wonder about the following. So what I'm getting at is, if the warlord Yahya, Sin and War is related to the House of Windsor, who both carry the same hereditary, protruding ears and narrow eyes. The British Empire ruled over Philistine for 32 years, from 1916 to 1948, which is called the Mandatory Philistine, after the British Empire drove the Caliphate out in 1916. And isn't it, that's why we hear all the time of bringing back the Caliphate. So here it says Mandatory Philistine from 1920 to 1948. Well, actually, it's from 1916, but officially 1920. But here, after an Arab uprising against the Ottoman Empire arose during the First World War in 1916, British forces drove Ottoman forces out of the Levant. So practically since 1916. So you can read it yourself here. Here it says Mandatory Philistine. And this is very important. Well, it's quite long, so you can look it up yourself. So theoretically, the British nobility had all the time to procreate a bloodline of sleeper agents, which is what Pharaoh's nobility has always done, as blood is thicker than water, as the proverb goes, and only the own bloodlines can be fully trusted. So here it says, blood is thicker than water. And look at his ears, the guy with the tongue, also the same ears, so also probably same bloodline, another sleeper agent. They did the same in Afghanistan, by the way. Haven't you noticed that NATO's occupation of Afghanistan lasted exactly 1 generation? 20 years to procreate and train bloodline sleepers who look Afghan from the outside, but are Pharaonic inside. Also, the Romans have done this with the white tribes of Europe. So here it says the fall of Afghanistan, 20 years of imperialist meddling. Imperialist, that means an empire, the British Empire. And look at the badge of the Afghan dude here. It's a pyramid, That's what it means. The pharaohs are in control now. And even the Taliban, it's all infiltrated. And, it's not the same Taliban anymore. Just look at the comparison of the alleged terrorist Mr. Sin and War and King Charles. Maybe the British Empire wants Philistine back. Even more so listening to Prince William, who's telling the jaywalkers to stop killing the Philistine terrorists, while Prince William is a killer of Muslims himself, who killed innocent Muslims in Afghanistan. So this is what he says here. You can read the whole thing. He says here, I, like so many others, want to see an end to the fighting as soon as possible. So he says he doesn't want to have the Hamas killed, And I think the reason is quite obvious, as I just showed you the pictures before, the hereditary pictures. Here it says, Prince William and Prince Harry have killed many innocent Muslims in Afghanistan. And if you look at this image here with the swastika, this family seems to be obsessed and with wars and fascinated with, murdering innocent civilians, what exactly, what the Nazis did, especially in killing, defenseless jaywalkers, which what he's saying here, stop defending yourself, will lead to the same thing as what you can see here on his arm. Prince William's brother, Prince Harry, recently wrote a book called Spare, in which he's boasting to have killed even more Afghans than his brother William. The killer prince boasted to have killed at least 25 Afghan Muslims. So here it says, here you see him in his Apache chopper. Prince Harry reveals he killed 25 in Afghanistan. That's what the British media said. And Prince Harry admitted to killing 25 people during his military service, confessing he's neither proud nor ashamed of it. Oh, he's not ashamed, eh? Well, that's why he announced it. And the book is called Spare. I mean, spare? Spare what? Spare tire? Sparing the Muslims? No, not really. Sparing the jaywalkers? No, neither, with his swastika on his arm. So what's spare? Must be a spare tire then. So here it says, here you see him again with the chopper in Afghanistan with the swastika. It says, jolly good fox hunting in Afghanistan, starring Prince Harry. So, it's funny actually that they call the chopper an Apache. It's like, they were at war, like America, with the Apaches. So why the conquered people, why given the honor of an Apache chopper? Maybe in 10 years the choppers are called Hamas, when they conquered Hamas. And it's weird, isn't it? So here you see the other one, Prince William, here as well, in Afghanistan. Here you see the Afghans, the Pashtuns probably. And here it says, a jolly good fox hunting in Afghanistan. Code name, Wales for the killer princes. So here it says Wales, it's their code name. And in Wales, there's the Celtic people living there. They speak a Celtic language, It's another conquered people for which they use the name, just like the Apaches, So it's not really far off, that the next chopper will be called Hamas or Philistine or Jaywalker or whatever, You can see this. Another conquered people, the Celts, by the Roman Empire. Well, who was the Roman Empire? The elite are all pharaohs who came after the Germanic tribes sacked Rome. They came to France and became the nobility. So I guess these killer princes are the very last to utter a single word on the Gaza war. And just look again at the comparison of Killer Prince Harry with Yahya Sinwar, Mr. Sin and War. They could very well share a couple of hereditary genes of the royal pharaonic house of Windsor. Only the nobility can raise an army and an organization like Hamas. Nobody else can do this. And this is what these pharaohs have been doing for thousands of years. They fight another people from the inside out. And even before the British Empire ruling over Philistine, the Ottoman Caliphate brought their amount of aristocrats into Philistine, whose descendants are still there, partially. So here is an octagon here. It's universal for the nobility, with an inner circle here. So the octagon is protecting the inner circle. I don't see a square here, but there must be something, And now I want you to look at these incredible long noses, you know, this one too here, all of them. Now look at this one, and this one here, incredibly long. And this is not something, you know, as people say, you know, the jaywalkers, not at all. It's the nobility, you know, look at how long. And I'll give you some examples. Look, here are some pharaonic noses. This is Ramses the Great, same sort of nose, you know, like you just saw before of all the caliphs of the Ottoman Caliphate. This is Louis XIV, same nose, very long, and you know, it doesn't go in like this here, it goes all straight like his as well. And here another pharaoh, well, he's got the same nose as Louis XIV. You know? And it's all the same race ruling over humanity, both in the Orient and in Europe. And they come out of ancient Egypt, like here and here. And this, because they are the same noses as the caliphs. So this is why we have all the Muslims in Europe, because the noses wanted it like that, you know. And this here is Ivan the Terrible. Now look at the nose, the same nose as Louis XIV, as Pharaoh Ramses II, as the caliphs of the Ottoman Empire. It's all the same race. And here, the other one, it's called Liliputin, the even more terrible. And look how long his nose is. It is going in here though. It's not like straight, but it's very long, you know. Europeans don't have this. You know, it's all the same. He was the first Tsar of Russia, Ivan the Terrible. Well, let's hope this is the last Tsar, you know, so we get done with it, eh? Ivan the Terrible and Liliputin the Terrible. So here I added a third one, and they all got the same ears. Look at it. And look at this ear here. It's very much like this one here. And so this is Amin al-Husseini of the Philistine nobility, al-Husseini. Very important family. And you all see the long nose here, eh? I just showed you a whole lot of long noses, like Ivan the Terrible and the caliphs of the Ottoman Empire. Well, he's got it as well, eh? Narrow eyes, narrow eyes, narrow eyes. So now look at the comparison between the Philistine, Amin al-Husseini, here all the way to the left, Yahya, Sin and War in the middle, and young Prince Charles, who all have the same narrow eyes and protruding ears, and therefore might very well be related family-wise. And Amin al-Husseini was in the same business in wiping out jaywalkers, as he was the head of the two Muslim SS divisions, Handjar and Skanderbeg, who did a real jihad genocide in the Balkans during World War II, murdering 400,000 innocent European civilians, just to give you an idea what's coming at us. So here you see him, Amin al-Husseini, doing the Nazi salute in front of the Muslim soldiers on European soil. Here's his name, Amin al-Husseini of the Arabic nobility al-Husseini. And here it says SS Division Handjar, or in English this is a J, Handjar, and SS Division Skanderbeg, sometimes written with a K here. And this is their logo. This sword is the Oriental sword. It's called the Handjar. Amin al-Husseini met Hitler on November the 28th, 1941, while staying 4 years in Nazi Germany until the end of the war in 1945. And he also met Mussolini in October 1941. And here you can see him together with Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS. A lot of Muslim soldiers on European soil doing the Nazi salute once more. And here's his name, Hajj Amin al-Husseini. A Hajj, it means he went to Mecca on a Hajji. So these are the sort of things he said today. Arabs, rise as one man and fight for your sacred rights. Kill the jaywalkers wherever you find them. This pleases God, history and religion. This saves your honor. God is with you. And today, 80 years later, we hear the very same words by Mr. Sin and War here, Yahya Sin and War, and his organization here, the Sham, Al-Sham. So, same rhetorics, same ears, and very much, most likely, the same bloodline. Amin al-Husseini was of the Al-Husseini Philistine nobility and a friend of Adolf Hitler and a friend of the head of the SS, Heinrich Himmler. All these wars, bloodsheds and genocides are done by the nobility out of Pharaoh's aristocracy. So here he is, and Amin al-Husseini, all these Arabic names, Al-Husseini and Al-Saud, it means it's nobility. It's like the German von or the French de, von Stauffenberg, it's all nobility. And the Arabs, they have Al. And here it says, Al-Husseini was the scion. I'll show you what the word scion means in a minute. Of the Al-Husseini family of the Jerusalemite Arab nobles, a nobleman, you see, who trace their origins to the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Or maybe that's where the ears come from. And I know another one who also been traced to the prophet Muhammad. So here's some more on Amin al-Husseini. And here it says, in fact, the Husseinis dominated the prestigious post of Mufti in Jerusalem from the late 18th century until the 20th, with few interruptions, and they occupied several others of the city's important political, diplomatic, and religious positions. With their considerable influence in the city, the family was this very much part of Jerusalem's nobility. Yeah, it's the nobility of Pharaoh. And they owned significant land in and around Jerusalem, as well as across Philistine. As a historian described the Husseinis, the family had become landed aristocrats wielding considerable political power, together with the Khalidis, Alamis, Jaralas, and Nashashibis. It's all nobility. Well, the article goes on, and you can find it yourself. The word scion means the heir to a throne. It says the heir to a throne, or a guardian, a descendant of a distinguished family. It's all the etymology of the word here, scion. And as the Knights Templars thought to be heir to the throne, and therefore had to make the new horizontal rule Republican NWO system of the nobility. Therefore, the Knights Templars called the place around the temple of King Solomon Zion or Sion, as they thought to be the legitimate heirs or scions of the throne. It says from Middle English, Sion, and Old French, Sion. And the word, it's still spoken like this and written like this in French. You know, it's almost the forbidden word. As I've already told you many times, that the elders of Zion are in fact the elders of the Priory of Sion, which was a Templars commandery in the Swiss town of Sion, or Sion, as they speak French in that Swiss town, and the Templars also spoke French. And as the Templars originally spoke French, the French word for Zion or Zionist is still written with an S, pronouncing it as Sion or Sioniste. That's why the political movement of Zionism derived from the nobility and 3 British lords of the Balfour Declaration, as only the nobility knows what it's all about. Today, those poor jaywalkers are stuck with the word Zionism, which is not even theirs, which they don't even understand what it means, and what half the world hates. So much for God's chosen, who don't even know their own history and have no clue what's really going on. So here you see the Knights Templars, here you see Swissy, and as this town of Sion, where they speak French, is in Swaziland. It still exists, right? Where the Priory of Sion was. And this is the original way of writing Sion. And from the old French, it's without the C, it's S-I-O-N. And so the elders of the Priory of Sion. And they are the heirs to the throne of King Solomon. And King Solomon was married with the daughter of Pharaoh, as it says in the Bible. You know, it's all turning around this, you know, the Temple of Solomon and Knights Templars, and yeah. So in those days they wrote Sion, this Sion here, meaning an heir to the throne, without the C. Even in English, they wrote it S-I-O-N. And as these Knights Templars, they wanted to be the heirs of the throne, making the new horizontal Republican NWO system. And this is what it's about. From what I heard from my house when I was a kid, it was actually the Russian Tsar nobility, or around the Tsar, who wrote this book of pages, The Elders of the Priory of Sion, or just The Elders of Sion, because they hated the Templars that much, who wanted to kill the Tsars, you know, with the revolution and make the new aristocratic system of the Republicans and horizontal rule. Whereas the OWO of the Tsars and the old Russian nobility, they were of course the vertical rule and the feudal system. And so they were very much afraid of these, of the Priory of Sion, actually, the Knights Templars. The pharaohs were already in Gaza 5,500 years ago in Tel Es Sakan, which is 5 kilometers south of Gaza City. And you better believe they never left, and that their descendants are still there and became the ruling aristocratic families of Philistine and Gaza, like the Al-Husseini dynasty, together with the Khalidis, Al-Lamais, Jaralas, and Nashashibis, the type of ruling elite who always want more without working for it, as the nobility always did worldwide, and of course including the very much existing Oriental nobility and their science, who just want to grab everything for which the jaywalkers worked for in the JJ base. Of course, this idea doesn't please very much the jaywalker nobility, like Baron de Rothschild, the Levi and Strauss nobility, who own the JJ base and their jaywalker slaves. So the Gaza war is basically a war between the Arab nobility and the jaywalker nobility. Whereas the worldwide media portray the Gaza war as a war between the jaywalkers and the Philistines, which is entirely wrong. We're being played as usual. It's not a war in between the peoples. So here you see a Philistine, an Arab, with a tablecloth on his head or something. And here you see the J runners or the jaywalkers running as usual. So this is the people and this is the people. And here it says, from the river to the sea, Philistine will be free. This is what I told you about. You know, and it's not from the Jordan River, as they say, till the Mediterranean. No, this is what I told you. It's about Hamas, which is Sham, and it's from the Euphrates River to the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. It's all about Sham. You know, it's not about just this here. So this is what it is, again, about the river to the sea. And it says again, Sham includes present-day Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan, extending from the Euphrates River, from the river to the Sinai, so to the sea. Here, this is the Sinai here, and this is the sea, and here's the sea. It's all about Sham, which is Hamas. Hamas is Sham. Hamas is an anagram for Sham, you know, as the nobility always covers up things, you know, and the nobility in this case is the Caliphate. So here it says, Tel As Sakan, yeah, it means the hill of ash is a now almost entirely destroyed tell or archaeological mound standing some 5 kilometers south of Gaza City, in what is today the Gaza Strip on the northern bank of Wadi Gazeh. It was the site of 2 separate early Bronze Age urban settlements, an earlier one representing the fortified administrative center of the Egyptian colonies in southwestern Philistine. From the end of the 4th millennium, that's 6,000 years ago, and a later local Canaanite fortified city of the 3rd millennium. The location of the mouth of what was probably a paleo channel of the river allowed it to develop as an important maritime settlement with the natural. Its geographical location, and here, of the position of importance of the crossroad of land-based trade routes between Canaan and the Old Kingdom of Egypt. As of 2000, the early Egyptian settlement was the oldest fortified site known to researchers in both Egypt and Philistine. Well, it goes on, you can read it yourself. So here it is, this is Gaza. So, you know, they're all fighting, you know, about this, Philistine, and, you know, the jaywalkers, they say, oh, it belongs to us. And then the Philistines, they say, oh, it belongs to us. But who was the first? That was Pharaoh. So to whom does it really belong? Yeah, Pharaoh. And they're the nobility, you know, and they make all the rules, you know, and this is what the fight is about. Yeah, the Egyptian city, the Bronze Age port dates to the end of the 4th millennium BC and was contemporary with En-Bezor in Egyptian First Dynasty staging post along the ways of Hross, trade route in the northern Negev, and Bezor, Zor, that's from Sar, meaning the king or pharaoh, was much smaller, but it was an important source for fresh water supply to caravans. There were also some other small Egyptian settlements in this area. The architectural remains, as well as all of the findings from Area A, are typical of the Nile Valley around 3000 BC. The only other Egyptian settlement in this area that was older than Es-Sakan was Taur Ik-Bene. And here's this En-Bezor. We can have a look at it. It's near the Gaza Strip, so it's full of pharaonic stuff there, It's not like as they, here's the En-Habazor. It's, where the October 7 massacre was like, There's probably one of those kibbutz now or something. And anyway, pharaohs were already there 5,500 years ago. And they left descendants who are now the nobility, either, jaywalker nobility and Arab nobility. And this is what the fight's about. So here it says the history of Philistine, and I'll let you read it yourself. Yeah, it's quite long, But what I find interesting here, it's about the chapter about the Egyptian dominance here, and all of this was called Canaan, and in Canaan. There's the word ka. It means the soul when you're still alive. It's a demotic pharaonic word, and Kena, on, on, it's from on, Osiris. So it's, it's all about here Egyptian, and the Egyptian withdrew from the area. The pharaohs that were here, already 5,500 years back. And they became the nobility. And this is what I want to emphasize at, This Oriental nobility use religion to unify and mobilize the people, to make them believe they're fighting a just war and go straight to paradise. When they murder a couple of jaywalkers, all blessed by Allah, to murder, rape, mutilate, torture, and lie. Just as the Nazis made a religion out of this here. This here is the same Hamas-Hitler technique to unify and to mobilize the people behind an identitarian idea and a widespread uniformed symbol in a total dictatorship by our masters of Pharaoh's nobility, who created religion in the first place back then in ancient Egypt in order to subjugate the dumb slaves through invisible hocus pocus. When I see this, with text here, holding it up and with a megaphone shouting with a Philistine flag and the tablecloths here and here over their heads, I have to think of, a political movement, and not a religion. It says here, massacre those who insult Islam. I mean, this is political and even worse. It says, freedom, go to hell. And the G is made out of 2 crescent moons here. Charming, isn't it? So personally, I must say that Islam is not a religion anymore. but Islam has become a political movement that is aggressively protesting in all the capital cities of all nations in the world and shouting murder and genocide of the jaywalkers and all other religions. So here it says, behead those who insult Islam. And this is in a European city, in England, this here. Massacre those who insult Islam. You know, it's like what I'm saying. You know, they're calling for murder, and here, I don't know, it's also a European or an American city. It says keep the world clean, and to put the JJ base state in the garbage can here. I mean, this is hardly, you know, religious. You know, this is political. This is political, and this here, no, it's even worse. You know, it's not even political. This is, you know, there's no diplomacy or something, you know. This is plain murder, crime. This is crime, war. So it's, you know, in my eyes, if I see this, I don't think of a religion. I think of a political movement, you know, that has even got worse than a political movement. These are not the acts of a peaceful religion, but these are the acts of a worldwide brutal political movement, shouting instead of contemplation, and murder instead of compassion. So this was also in England. It says here, slay those who insult Islam. Europe, you will pay. Demolition is on its way. Oh, that's a nice rhyme, eh? Europe, you will pay. Demolition is on its way. Behead those who insult Islam. Butcher those who mock Islam. Europe, you will pay. And extermination is on its way. Well, charming. And this is happening in European cities. And again, if I see this, it doesn't make me think of religion, but it makes me think of of two things, you know. It makes me think of a political movement, and it makes me think of a mob. Anyway, since 2005, Islam as a religion has been dead officially. When the Arabic nobility of Al-Saud blew up the Jamarat, where the Hajis threw stones at the 3 obelisks in order to kill Iblis. So here you can see it's an obelisk, and we're all throwing stones. And here it says Jamarat 2005, it's the end of Islam officially. And that's what real Muslims told me, you know. And so they were throwing stones at the obelisk. Well, not a bad thing, I would say. Because of this and the destruction of the Jamarat, the Hajj to Mecca is not valid anymore. And the Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam that has crumbled. As it has been prophesied that in the end times, Islam as a religion will disappear. These will be the signs, one of the signs of the end times in Islam. So in 2005, here it says again, Jamarat, 2005, you know, they blew up with explosives, this here. So they couldn't throw stones at Pharaoh anymore. And they replaced it with 3 ovals. Of course, there are 3 for the concept of 3, which is the old world order. And now there are 3 ovals, 3 of these here. You know, like the Oval Office, you know, or like yeah. So this is, here it says today, and this is before 2005. And here you can see the actual footage of how the Jamarat was blown up. Even here there's the 3 of these here. And there were 3 obelisks. Here you can see the explosion going on here, you know. It says here the old Jamarats were blown up and replaced with new ones. So the footage can be seen on my channel, Gatse Frats here. It's 12 years ago, from 2012. And here's the title. So, and now there's nothing to be found about this anymore. Not in Wikipedia, nowhere. And of course, no footage anymore. You know, they completely hide it, what happened here. Of course, these pharaohs or Firaun of the Arabic nobility didn't like it very much that the slaves were throwing stones at these 3 pharaonic obelisks in Mecca, at the Jamarat, because the obelisk is the symbol of pharaonic domination. Pharaonic domination as through the house of Al-Saud, who therefore blew up the Jamarat in 2005. So here it says Pharaoh Al-Saud. So here you see a couple of dudes of the, 4 probably, of the royal dynasty of Al-Saud, together with their beloved pharaonic obelisk in Washington, D.C., in America. So, you know, you can see here how they love it, you know, to be near their obelisk here. Otherwise, they wouldn't do this, right? You get it? All these, this is the pharaonic nobility, and they're worldwide. You know, you get them in Europe, you get them in Asia. The jaywalkers have them, and of course the Arabs have them. Why not? You know, all peoples have them. And we're all being dominated by Pharaoh's nobility. And of course they didn't like it, you know, that the slaves, they threw stones at their beloved obelisks at the Jamarat during the Hajj in Mecca. So they blew it up and destroyed it, you know. I think the obelisks themselves were not destroyed, you know, they're just the foundation, as you'll see that if you see the video footage. They probably kept the obelisk somewhere. Of course, a pharaoh does not destroy an obelisk, right? So officially, Islam has been dead since 2005. And what's left of it is murder, rape, torture, taqiyya, and violent protests of this political movement that wants more land, like the Caliphate, for the nobility on the land of Al-Sham. It's the Oriental nobility who want the vertical rule feudal caliphate back and use religion for that goal, so the slaves can identify themselves under a common denominator. Just as the Nazis did with their pan-Germanism to unify the dumb slaves into a single fighting unit for the nobility. So here it says play and slay, which for these ones would be pray and slay. Here it says pray and slay, and the other ones play and slay. And these ones here do pray and slay with an E, as in predator, of the predator of Pharaoh's nobility. Here it says pray and slay. It's always the same technique, which is another proof we're dealing with the same people behind the screens over and over again throughout the entire history. All these terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, the IS and whatnot. They all want the Caliphate. So we can all be slaves in a feudal, vertical rule by Pharaoh's nobility. Cool. In Gaza and the entire Philistine, many emperors and their elite dominated and left their nobility descendants at a certain time in period from Egyptian pharaohs, Babylonians, Persians, Greek, Romans, Ottoman Empire, the British Empire, and many more. And they've been fighting over that particular piece of land ever since, and leaving their consecutive nobility after each conquest, who now all claim a piece of the cake, while mobilizing the various commoners to do the war for them. So here on here's the side of the JJ base, and where they say we are not Netanyahu, this is the people. And here is the Gaza side, the people again, we are not Hamas. And this is exactly what it is, you know. It's the nobility fighting over this piece of land, and also how to rule it, most of all. Vertical versus horizontal. So here it says the history of Philistine. I have to take other words, you know, otherwise the censorship will take away my video. So they were all here, you know, all these emperors and empires of the nobility, of basically Pharaoh's nobility, and they've all been fighting over the land. So it says, strategically situated between three continents, the region of Philistine, also known as the land of the JJ base. I can't pronounce this word, I'm sorry. It's full censorship. And the Holy Land has a tumultuous history as a crossroads for religion, culture, commerce, and politics. Philistine is the birthplace of the Jaywalker religion and Christianity, and has been controlled by many kingdoms and powers, including, there we go, ancient Egypt, ancient Jaywalker, JJ base, the Persian Empire, Alexander the Great and his successor, so the Greek, you know, the Hasmoneans, the Roman Empire, several Muslim caliphates, and the Crusaders. In modern time, the area was ruled by the Ottoman Empire, then the British Empire, and since 1948 it has been divided into the JJ base, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. So they've been fighting over it for ages, and the Pharaoh's nobility, after each empire, they left their descendants here. And this is the problem. Look, here it says that Amin al-Husseini is from a noble family. I have to tell you this again because it's very important. So here it says Al-Husseini was the scion, you remember scion, of the Al-Husseini family of Jerusalemite Arab nobles, who trace the origins to the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Look at the ears, eh? So Husseini is from a noble family, and he has the same ears and narrow eyes as King Charles and Prince Harry. So look at the ears, this one and these. It says here Amin al-Husseini, this is Mr. Sin and War, and this is Charles III. All these narrow eyes and big floppy ears, you know, and it is hereditary. And here the other picture of Charles once more from 1967. Here says HRH, it means His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales probably, or yeah. And HRH in French it is SAR, Son Altesse Royale. and which is in fact his official title, both SAR and for the people it's HRH, but amongst themselves they call it SAR because Sar, it means the king or the queen in the Demotic Pharaonic language. Very important for them. They know they're out of Pharaoh. And why else would Amin's brother, whom you can see here, Kamil al-Husseini, be made a companion of the British nobility's secret order of Saint Michael and Saint George? Whereas the nobility only accept their own bloodlines in those orders and those closely related to it, with the same ears and eyes. So here it says here. So here's the name, Kamil al-Husseini, the same family, here written a bit differently. And the British also made him a companion of the order of Saint Michael and Saint George. There you can see the order. And he was succeeded by his brother Muhammad Amin al-Husseini. I think he's got the same ears, well at least he got the same head. And yeah, there's the order of Saint Michael and Saint George. And Saint George, that is the protector of the Knights Templars. And so he's part of the nobility, there's no doubt. They only give these orders to each other, to their own bloodlines. They don't give it to the people, the commoners. So here you see the order of Saint Michael and Saint George. And it says it's named in honor of two military saints, Michael and George. So here you see the Templars cross. And here it says Knight Commander, and the red cross is the cross of Saint George, and in the middle you got Saint Michael, and the whole thing here, this here is in an octagon, because that's the top of the Nazi Templars. Here you got a lot of Grand Masters, they're all princes and kings and earls here, the Earl of Athlone, the Earl of Halifax, the Duke of Kent, and the Prince Adolphus, the Prince George, and many, many, many others. So, you really think they would just give it to some Bedouins of Gaza or something? This is what the media is portraying. That here you can see it. So the cross is the cross of Saint George. And here you got Saint Michael. Military saints, it says, eh? And so here's a lot of, it says Knights and Dames of the Grand Cross, It's all like Sir, Sir, and Lord, and, you must be a diplomat and a governor, in order to get this, or a sultan. You see, the sultans, they get it as well. This one here, on a throne of Zanzibar. British diplomats, and you just don't get it like this, And in the Gaza war, the media, they portrayed the people in Gaza, the Philistines, as, some simple, like Bedouins or Arabic, commoners, like, but they're not commoners. These ones here, a commoner doesn't get like the the order of Saint Michael and Saint George. You just don't get it, you know. So this is what I want to emphasize on, that there is a very powerful nobility in Gaza and in Philistine, an Arabic Ottoman nobility out of Pharaoh, you know, and they work together, you know, with the British royal house. This is what I want to show you here. Look, the Queen was wearing the order here, where the red cross represents Saint George, the saint protector of the Knights Templars. And that's why the Knights Templars, one of the reasons they have a red cross. And the bloke with the dagger in the middle is Saint Michael. And all these kings, queens, princes, and princesses being in the order. So you really think the British royal house would just give the order to some Philistine Bedouin?